Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be covering a different topic, and one that I didn't really think I would personally be covering because it's quite a small channel, quite irrelevant, but the subject matter has kind of gripped the nation, and I'm sorry, but I can't ignore it. It really is that bad, and I'm not quite sure where to start. I've tried to put this in some sort of coherent order so that you can follow along. Now, some of you may have seen some of what I'm going to be talking about, but I feel like I have to show as many clips as I can so you can get an idea of what is what. So there's a lot to unpack. Let's get right into it. Now, this is a channel called Mum of 8 Kids. They're from Canada, and she has recently lost her husband.
This is Mom of eight kids. Now I'm a widow with 8 kids. 12 hours ago, my husband suddenly passed.
The first thing to note there, obviously, is that 12 hours ago her husband passed away, and she's come on to film her reaction or her thoughts about it just 12 hours later, which personally I feel is a bit, soon. Obviously, I feel like maybe she's trying to get some sort of therapeuticness from doing this, so let's give her the benefit of the doubt for now.
In our home, and he was rushed to the hospital, and we have 8 kids together. We were married for 20 years, and he was a lot older than me. He just turned 70 on June 23rd, and
so he was 70, she was I think she's 40 thereabouts. They got together when she was 19 and he was about 50, and there's people will have opinions on that, I'm sure, but there's other things that are inherently skewed about this, so I'm going to give my opinions a little bit later on this.
So I knew this day would come, but I had been dreading it for 20 years. I have been dreading this day. And so I haven't told the kids yet. Only the older ones know. This is our youngest one right here. He's over a year old. He was born in January last year. My youngest one here, she's 3. She'll be 4. Just a minute. Those are the kids. They don't know I'm recording this. So the reason I'm doing this is because I think it'll help me a lot to have an emotional outlet.
So she's recording this. The kids are in the other room, and she hasn't told the kids about their father passing away yet. So that in itself I find quite odd, very odd in actual fact, and a little bit freakish if I'm being honest.
To deal with this, because we don't have any friends and we don't have any family members, because my family members didn't agree when I married the love of my life, my husband. So I stopped talking to all of them, and it's been like 20 years since I talked to anybody. The older ones know. My oldest is 20. He just turned 20 June 15th. And my second youngest, 18, he was there at the hospital with me, and we said our goodbyes. Although I tried to tell myself that he's not really gone. I try to tell myself he's in a different place.
So her eldest two do know about their father passing away. They are 18 and 20. Remember that. She doesn't sound in the best emotional state at this stage, so maybe recording her feelings is actually a good thing to do, possibly a little bit too soon. But she says that she doesn't have any friends or family to have this emotional outlet with, so camera is, I guess. Then she starts writing a list of things that she needs to do and to get sorted out. Again, as I said, it's only 12 hours though, so maybe all this can wait a little while, but she wants to get it all sorted and she's going to tell us what she needs to do.
Prescriptions. My husband was on ODSP, so any prescriptions that my son, my eldest, and I need, which there are 2, we each need 1. I got to get that filled out before the ODSP coverage ends. Try and get as much of that done because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't work. And I'm not going to be getting my husband's income anymore. The ODSP coverage and the income and his pension too, because he was 70 years old. So that won't be coming in anymore. I'm going to streamline our bills. I'm going to try and cut out anything that is extra because I also need to notify the ODSP, which is disability in Canada and Ontario. Tomorrow, the coroner is going to call me.
Okay, so this is the part where I feel like I need to point out the obvious, right? And this is the problem when it comes to age gap marriages and relationships, right? Because he is a lot older than she is, about 40 years. Is it 40 or 30 years older? So at some point, this was always going to happen. They had 8 kids together. They knew that at some point that he would pass away a lot sooner than she would, and she would be left with the kids and with no income and very little way of coping. And that is why their life choices were dubious at best, because they needed to think about, well, what's going to happen, in 10, 20 years down the line when I'm on my own or when my wife is on her own. What is she going to do? How is she going to cope? How is she going to live? How is she going to pay the bills? How is she going to keep the kids alive and things like that, And I don't think that was ever a consideration in this, just from what I'm gathering from listening to her.
We're also living in housing right now, thank God, because rent would cost us twice as much, and if we had to go and find a place to rent, nobody would want to rent to a family with so many kids. So and the plan is that tomorrow, right now it's pretty late, it's about 11 at night, when my 18-year-old is awake and my 20-year-old is awake. Empress, you're squishing the baby. That's when I'm going to have to tell our 16-year-old, his name is Adonis, that was my daughter, bumped the camera again.
I have no one to watch my 2 youngest right now, everyone else is asleep, and this is a common theme throughout all her videos. She tends to record these when people are asleep in the middle of the night and things like that, and nobody is watching the 2 youngest, and she chooses to talk to the camera instead of looking after her children, which is the most important thing that she should be doing right now, but she's not, and she tends to do this quite a lot. On some occasions, I've seen her holding both children, struggling to hold both children in her arms whilst talking to the camera. I just feel like there's a lot going on in this household.
He was found in the kitchen on the floor. He wasn't breathing, and I'm trying not to cry. I want to tell you that the kids saw him on the floor. I saw him on the floor. I checked the breathing and I called the ambulance, but it was, the kids think that he's in the hospital and that he's still gonna come back. So they think he's going to come back still. They're okay, the younger ones, and my 16-year-old too. Like I said, the only ones who know is my older two sons. And
so to clarify, what she's saying here is that her oldest two know about their father passing away. The youngest six don't. And when she's referring to the youngest six, she's talking about obviously her 1-year-old, her 3-year-old, but she's also talking about her 7, 10, 12 and 16-year-olds, right? Each one of those are comfortably able to digest the situation as it should be. They should all be told. The 16-year-old especially, why are they not being told that their father's passed away? It's 16, virtually an adult, and you haven't told them. That I cannot get my head around whatsoever.
we found him. I found him. He was on the floor, like passed out with vomit coming out of his mouth. And we were all home. We were all home.
So I don't want to be seen to be coming down hard on her, because obviously she's very upset, she's grieving, and she has just lost her husband. But all of them were home at the time that he was passing away. All of them were at home whilst he was lying on the kitchen floor in a pool of vomit. And I cannot get my head around how not one of them, even one of the kids, anyone, went and had a look and checked on him, or I don't know. It just feels like there's something missing and something going wrong in this family entirely.
And his head was turned to the side, and I thought that would be okay because I'd seen this happen before. He takes some of his heavy pills, and I thought it was acid reflux, and so I thought he would sleep it off, but they think that one of his lungs filled with the vomit, and they think that's what happened, and he was already dead when I saw him on the floor. I'm
aware that this is very strong and triggering information which is coming here, and I'm hoping that you're still with me, but I'm watching it and I'm actually in disbelief that they had the husband and father lying on the kitchen floor in a pool of vomit. They checked on him, or she did at least, and thought this is normal and let him sleep it off, and all the while he was there, passed away, and she was just carrying on with her day. This is completely, it's another level of something that I can't get my head around. Usually I try to see both sides of an argument, but I can't. I'm struggling to understand how this has happened.
He was snoring, and I noticed that he was very quiet, so I went to check him out, and I thought he was breathing shallow, and I tried to wake him up. I couldn't wake him up. I was shaking his arm. I was calling his name, Eugene. And so I knew he wouldn't like me to call an ambulance, but I did.
Now, I find that a very strange thing to say. Really, really strange, in fact, because why would he not like you to call an ambulance in a situation of an emergency, right? If you find somebody unresponsive, call an ambulance, get medical help. That's what you do. You don't say, oh, well, my husband, he wouldn't like to, but I think I'm going to have to. That doesn't cross your mind. It's just a very strange thing to say.
Anyway, and it was already too late. She told us to do heart compressions until the ambulance came. Ambulance came very fast. They worked on him. They worked on him for about 20 minutes. And then they took him to the hospital, worked on him again for another 3 hours. And they got me to try and talk to him towards the end, but even though they had got a pulse, they had lost it twice. The first time they shocked him back to life because I told them that he has kids and he has a young baby, young children at home, and so his heart was, the pulse was very weak, and each time they got it beating again, that's just one of my kids coming in, one of my little ones. It was just
slightly off topic here, but notice how one of the little ones is awake and up again, and it's I think it's supposed to be 2 a.m. here at this particular time, and it's just a constant theme throughout. The kids are up throughout the night, just running about, having dinner and things like that. It's very, the situation is just gives me a little bit of a I'm not sure.
Just not as strong a heartbeat, and finally it stopped, and they gave him every medicine they could. They couldn't shock him back to life again because his heartbeat, I guess, wasn't strong enough to do that. So I stayed with him for quite a while afterwards. I didn't want to leave him. My 20-year-old eldest was there with me, and he came just right at the end with my 18-year-old to talk to him, but they just made it at the end, but he probably had already suffered brain damage because his heart just wasn't pumping enough blood to the organs and his and his brain, so he would have suffered brain damage. But I would have been okay with him not being the same man as the doctor said. I would have been fine, because I would have still had him to talk to and to hold his hand.
Now, I don't know if anybody else has picked up on this particular point or not, but oh my god, right? She's been told that her husband would have had brain damage, but she would have been okay with that because she would have had him to be at home and be there with him, with her, and he could hold her hand, and she could just talk to him. But who says that? He would have suffered brain damage, but she would have been okay with that as long as she could have him to talk to. There's so much wrong here. It's really, really, really wrong.
I would have been fine, but now it's just us, and I have to be very cautious not for any of us to fall down the blame game, because he had already been dead a while. He had stopped breathing for a while when I found him, and I had seen him on the floor earlier, but I thought that he took his prescriptions, his what he called knockout pills, because the pain gets too bad. If he doesn't take his prescriptions, then he suffers a lot of pain. If he does take them, it makes him feel sick. And
yeah, I just really can't wrap my head around leaving him lying there dead. essentially, right, or dying at the time, and not doing anything to help him whilst he is in that state. And not just her, but any of the kids, right? I don't obviously don't want the 7-year-old to be walking around and finding their dad dead, but you know, one of them must have gone and have had a look, said, "Dad, are you okay? What's happening?" Or you know, just raise the alarm. Nothing, nobody, because they all homeschool as well, so they would have all been there and just maybe doing their work. I don't know.
They're going to do an autopsy on him tomorrow, and I'll get a call about that from the coroner when he hears from the doctor doing the autopsy. I did get some sleep after we came home from the hospital. Would have been about 11 a.m. He died about 3:30 in the morning. So they're not sure what the cause was exactly yet. And if you're not sure, I mean, if you don't know, if they don't know the cause, then the police officers, they were in the kitchen and they stayed there the whole time while we were in the hospital, keeping the area forensically, I don't know, complete, until they heard, and the coroner said that he was going to go send my husband for an autopsy. So the police were in the house, 2 policemen were in the house in our kitchen while my kids were at home, and later on my eldest and my second eldest joined me at the hospital.
And none of your kids found this kind of odd, weird, that a couple of policemen were just stood there guarding the scene, if you like, you know? That must have been quite scary for them, surely, or not? I don't know if this is a normal occurrence in this house.
So that must have been weird, because we don't usually get visitors. Like I said, we don't have friends, and yeah, okay, where's your popcorn? And so then they had to kick us all out when they heard from the coroner that my husband was going to go for an autopsy. And they looked through the house. They were looking, it was routine, they said, just in case there's, you know, something suspicious. They went in the rooms, they checked out everything. They asked me if I used drugs, they asked me if he used drugs, like street drugs. They read his notes, his love notes to me, and they just they didn't just shuffle a lot, but I know they were checking out, you know, the house, see if they can find like the smoking gun or something.
So yeah, obviously the police are going to investigate to make sure that there's nothing amiss here in this situation, because as it is, it's quite weird that this guy was lying dying whilst all of them were in the house at the same time. Just feels a bit off, and they probably think that too, and would like to just investigate to make sure.
And I'm thinking that they might call, in the US it's called CPS, you know, like the baby police. Where I live it's called Facts, Families and Children's Services, because I didn't have the baby in a crib, and we have an unconventional lifestyle and schedule. But I wouldn't be surprised if they were notified and I get a knock on the door from them. And we've been through this before. When my years ago, we've been through this before, and they went through it all, and they didn't find any abuse or anything like that, and it was just a stupid reason that anyone can call, and they found nothing, of course.
So I'm assuming there that somebody else looked at their lifestyle and thought, yeah, this sounds a bit odd, and called CPS Facts in Canada on them. Now, that particular vlog was uploaded on September 29th of this year. So remember that date, it's very important. And then they uploaded, or she uploaded another one a few days later. This one was on October 2nd. Now, they put in the description, still haven't told the kids yet, but they've also put, or she's also put, an additional, on the kind advice of some viewers, I have set up a Patreon account, and if you feel inclined to donate $2, I seriously thank you from the bottom of my heart. So she put up a Patreon account, and she has, at the moment, she has about 153 donors, and you know, she needs some money, I guess, to, you know, to cover. But this kind of raised some questions, because, you know, people may be starting to think, why is she, you know, she's now making money out of her husband's dying, and but it doesn't get any better what she's saying. I know, as I said, some of you may have already seen this, some may think it's, you know, too much information. I hope you're still with me, but there's so much to digest, and it's so insanely insane that it really needs a good looking at.
It's been 39 hours since my husband suddenly passed away. I did make a video already explaining what happened. You can go back and watch that video. Thank you for clicking on this video, because I think that doing this will help me. It's an emotional outlet. So YouTube has become my emotional outlet.
So originally I thought that this was an emotional outlet just to talk it through on camera, to, you know, just for her own self, right? But obviously she always intended to put this up onto YouTube, and that's important to note as well, because it's not just an emotional outlet. You're just talking to strangers on the internet, and that's always a dangerous game.
The call from the coroner said he had a large pneumonia on the right side of his lung, which is probably because he was lying on the floor for a very long time. As I said in the last video, I couldn't wake him up. He was knocked out. He had taken his heavy pain relief pills, and I was waiting for him to sleep it off. So they're not sure what caused it still, so they took some samples and they're going to be doing some tests, and he said he'd call me back in a few weeks, it could be months, with the results.
So just an update there then, that he also suffered pneumonia whilst lying there dying on the floor, which is it's really sad to think that this is the way he went in the end, but it still can't get my head around it.
What really scared me is, what if she thinks that it's neglect? We all saw him there on the kitchen floor sleeping. You couldn't wake him up. He was knocked out. He was snoring, and his face was turned to the side, so the fluid that was coming out could...
I'm sorry, but in any circumstance, in any situation, in any walk of life, I would say that your husband lying on the kitchen floor trying to sleep things off isn't entirely normal, right? It really isn't normal. And they may think, they may have lived their life like he would do that a lot, but that kind of goes to show their lifestyle a little bit more than they might like to admit, because I don't think that leaving your unwell husband on a cold kitchen floor is necessarily the best thing for him.
Drain And my son is 20 years old. My second oldest is 18 years old. They're adults too, so.
Yes, absolutely yes. I'm no lawyer, and I don't know the law in Canada, but I would say that your sons do not get a pass away from criminality because they're at home living with mummy. Okay, that's not how that's not how it works in life and in law. It's if there is wrongdoing, then yeah, there can be a level of responsibility, but at the end of the day, if you're a 20-year-old and you see your dad dead, then you have some responsibility to call the ambulance.
My concern was she going to charge me with neglect or manslaughter or something like that? We didn't understand what was going on with him on the floor. We had seen him, knocked out before with his pills. He was snoring loudly like he does when he takes his heavy pills. Yeah. Until he wasn't. He was very quiet, and that's when I called the ambulance. Yeah. And so is she going to charge all three of us since we're all legally adult? Is she going to charge all three of us with manslaughter or neglect? I have a few things in my favor, though. One is I was not legally his caretaker. He managed his own pills. He managed his own doctor's appointments. I don't even have a driver's license. My 18-year-old has a driver's license, a full driver's license, so fortunately he can take us to get the groceries and such.
I seriously hope I'm not the only person here that is watching in disbelief at what I'm actually listening to. She says that I have one thing in my favor. I'm not his caregiver. That has no bearing on whether or not you can take care of another human being, or whether you are responsible for another human being, right? For example, if I was walking along the street and I came across somebody unconscious, right? And I had reason to believe that they were not well, or maybe even dead, right? If I just said, hang on, right, it's not my responsibility, right? I'm not his caregiver. I'm just going to walk on by and carry on. That could be deemed as being, neglectful, or, failing to report, a death or something, right? It's not right at the very least. You can't just say, I'm not their caregiver, so it's not my responsibility to, help them when they need help. You just help them, especially you being his wife. You're expected to help him.
Long time ago, like 30 years ago, he did have a history of attempted suicide. That was long before we ever met. Maybe is a detective going to think that maybe this was some kind of attempted suicide? Is she going to think it's an accident, or is she going to think it's neglect? One of those three.
I mean, this is so sad and upsetting and worrying, but it's also, I can't turn away because I'm looking at it and thinking, what is actually going on? The things that she's saying just blows my mind. That I know people grieve in different ways, and I know that I'm not trying to lay blame unnecessarily. I'm just trying to understand why this is all happening, and also it can be construed negatively by the authorities about what has actually happened in that house. Now, the next vlog was uploaded on October 7th, and it doesn't get any better.
5 days since my husband passed away. I've been really busy, really busy, because when I found out that where I live in Canada, it's called FACS, and in the US, it's called CPS, Child Protective Services. In Canada, it's Families and Children's Services, and in a situation like this, they're automatically called. So, I haven't told my children yet.
Oh my god. Right. I'm sorry, but when I heard that, I didn't know what to say. It's like I I've been watching this unfold with my mouth wide open because I cannot believe, right, 5 days in, 5 days that her kid's father has been passed away. 5 days, and she hasn't told them about their dad being dead. It's beyond the point of where I can't believe it. It's just completely and utterly unbelievable. Really, really bad. I can't fathom it, and I can't understand it.
That my husband's dead, their father is dead, and that's because I'm trying to give them time to ease into this new situation, this new lifestyle. As far as they think right now, they think he's still in the hospital, and
They what? I'm sorry, but what? You're trying to allow your kids to have time to ease into the situation of their dad being passed away. What exactly are you trying to say here?
they remember when I was in the hospital with the baby. I was in the hospital for 5 days with the baby. So to them right now, they think this is normal, that daddy's in the hospital, and they think he's getting looked after.
I'm sorry, but there are so many red flags in that family. It's unbelievable, right? Firstly, you've got the situation where not one of the children thought that their dad was in any sort of trouble when he was lying dying on the kitchen floor. You've got kids running about at all sorts of hours of the night. You've got the kids thinking it's normal for the dad to be just there in hospital. They're not going to see him. They're not allowed. Well, they're not asking to see him. They're not asking to see if he's okay. They're not. They just think that he's there, and then they don't care. They're not asking questions. They're not. I think that's the biggest thing, that especially the older ones, like the 16 or even the 12-year-old, is not asking questions about what's happening with dad, why is he there, what's wrong with him, when's he coming home, and things like that. It's so many red flags. It's like the entire family are in this sort of, I don't want to say bubble, but kind of like that. Just very insular. You don't have any outside influence at all to know that this is not actually normal.
And all of us frantically cleaned up the house on Wednesday. I shared with you my plans, what I did Monday, what I did Tuesday. Wednesday, we frantically cleaned the house because I spoke to a family lawyer, and she told me that they're coming in the house no matter what. Now, the reason why I didn't want them to come in the house initially was because it was really messy and really dirty. So we've been frantically cleaning up the house because we want them to come in and see everything's okay, because I prioritize my children's care over housework. So yes, the house is dirty, the house is messy, but that's because I prioritize brushing their teeth. I prioritize, my children overdoing housework.
And another red flag, because prioritizing your children and, brushing their teeth and stuff, but you've only got, 2 children you actually have to brush their teeth of, right? Obviously, you have all the other kids to take care of as well, but if you're doing one thing for them but allowing them to live in squalor, that is not, that is something that children they should expect to live in a decent environment and not live in a dirty, because you're saying it's dirty, not just that it's messy or untidy, that it's actually dirty. And to be honest with you, without looking around your house, we don't know for certain, but I'm getting very bad vibes from this. I'm getting images in my head exactly of the type of house that we're thinking about here, and it's not good in my head.
So, and my husband was unable to do a lot of the housework himself. He was 70 years old. He had a disc degenerative disease in his back, so he couldn't stand very long. And he was on a bunch of prescriptions, and he slept a lot.
And this comes down again to your lifestyle choices. Why are you married to a man that's 30 years your senior when he is obviously not very well? He's got illnesses and injuries and all sorts. And then your youngest is 1 year of age, right? So you must have planned to have another child as recently as 2 years ago. So surely you would think at some point, yeah, I can't cope with the 7 that I've already got because I'm having to do all the housework and do everything because my husband can't. But then you decide to have another child when you can't cope with the ones that you already have, and you know that.
So I guess because he slept a lot and I had to manage a lot on my own these couple last years, I'm thinking that's why the kids are okay right now, you know. So far they haven't been asking me a lot, where's daddy, which is good. I think they just think he's going to come home when he's done.
But again, that's not normal. Most children of a certain age, at least, even the 7-year-old would be wondering, where is daddy? Where is he? Why is he not come home? When's he coming home? I miss daddy. Is he okay? And not just, oh, when he's done, he'll be back. I can't really, I'm sorry.
So, if you're wondering why I hadn't told them yet, it's because I consulted my eldest son. My husband and I, we had 8 children in our 20-year-long marriage. And this was a time I'd always been dreading for all those 20 years. And so far things are functioning okay. So my son and my 2 eldest sons, 18 and 20, we discussed it, and my 18-year-old son, he just thought that, don't tell them, give them time to adjust, and then they'll figure it out eventually themselves.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, but oh my god. So what you're saying here is that your 18-year-old child, right, okay, he's legally an adult, but he's still a child, essentially. Your 18-year-old child has told you, don't tell the kids right now. They will figure it out eventually. They will figure out that their dad's dead eventually. And you went along with that. I cannot believe... I can't... I'm sorry, but I'm continuously dumbfounded by what I'm actually hearing here. Your 16, 12-year-olds will eventually figure out that daddy's not coming home, and be okay with it, is it? And move on. You're basically getting them ready to live a life without dad, so just don't tell it. Just don't tell them. I literally have never heard anything more ridiculous than that in my entire life. I don't think I actually have. No, I'm pretty sure I haven't, and I've heard some weird shit.
The day before yesterday, I told our 15-year-old son, he asked me, because there were some papers on the table, and you see, fax, which is the same as CPS in the US, they came to our door. They wanted to see the children. Now, I was out running errands with my other two sons, you know, going to the bank, stuff like that, and they came to the door and they said, "Sorry for your loss." And someone's trying to come in, and my Adonis, my 15-year-old, he didn't know what they were talking about, but there were some papers left in the mailbox, and I thought that these papers were from the street, you know. I thought the whole street got these papers because there was a picture of children smiling on it, and it said music or something on it. So I thought, oh, I don't need to read this right now. I'm just going to put it on the table, in the kitchen table. I thought it was from like the local club or something. We have like a club around here. And so I left it on the table. And later on, Adonis looked at it and he saw that there was a support group for grieving children. And what it was is they gave an example that my pet passed away, you know?
So you not telling your children for all this time after their dad has died is not really worked out that well, because your 15/16-year-old, because I'm not quite sure, keeps interchanging with the age there, has found out because a policeman comes to the door and tells him, and yeah, this is what's going to happen, you know. The police and a piece of paper informed your child that their dad had died. Well, that's one for the books, isn't it? And how long is it going to take you to tell the rest of the kids before they find out in the same way?
So anyhow, he was okay. He didn't cry, but he did get teary-eyed at the start when he said to me, "Why is everybody pretending that Daddy's dead?" D-E-A-D. Okay, why is everybody pretending that he's D-E-A-D?
And you're just sat there with your 3-year-old talking about their dad being dead and spelling it out so that they don't understand what it is you're saying. Notice that she is repeating the spelling. She may not understand it, obviously, but she is trying to repeat it. She's trying to understand. She's trying to gauge it. Kids are not stupid, right? Sorry, but don't sit there talking about their dad dying and just expect their kid, you know, your youngest kids just not to be bothered. It's disrespectful, if nothing else.
And so, back to what I was saying about frantically cleaning the house. So, since they could come in no matter what, I spoke to the family lawyer. She said they can come in 3 ways: either permission, get a court order, or forcefully if they think a child's in trouble. Now, fortunately, I'm going by... Yeah, you can color on paper in a minute. Here. The police hadn't told him how messy the house is. This is a routine because they did come back. And my son answered the door, Julius, and told them that right now is not a good time. So, they made an appointment to come back Monday at 3:30 in the afternoon. So, before that appointment was made, we were frantically cleaning up the house as best as we could so that, you know, we don't get in trouble. It needed to be cleaned up anyway, so that's why I wasn't in a rush the first 2 days, because I knew I was going to be cleaning the house anyway. But then on the third day, when I found out that, or maybe it was Tuesday when I called the lawyer, that they're going to be coming in no matter what, and I'm not going to leave it to the point where they have to get a court order, you know, because that looks really, really bad. It looks like you have something to hide.
So they cleaned the house. so that it would look better for the child and child services when they came in to have a look around. And yeah, I'm willing to bet, in actual fact, that they probably did not clean the house as much as necessary. I reckon, just my opinion, is that they're probably the type of people who don't quite get how bad their house actually is. I'm sorry, I've met people like that, and that's my impressions. I may be completely off the mark, but it is. Now, a couple of comments. People were commenting in the comment section about the fact she hadn't told the kids, and they were telling her straight. All of your children need to know their father has passed. No more excuses for the delay. Please inform them. How can you still not have told the children their father is dead? They need to hear this from you now and not by anyone else who could let it slip. And the comments were awash with that because nobody could believe it, and I can't believe it. It was absolutely ridiculous. But you know what came out, and this was mind-blowing to say the least. Now, some of you may be thinking, why are you going so hard in on her? I'm trying not to, in actual fact, but if her husband had literally just passed away, I wouldn't have touched this with a barge pole, right? Nobody would. So the fact is that it had been months since he'd passed away. He actually passed away on July 16th, 2023. Now, she didn't say this in any of those 3 videos that she put up. She forgot to mention, and she posted them as if they had just happened. And that allowed such franticness in the comments, such worry, such concern, people donating to her and everything else. And it kind of feels a little bit like people were being conned, right? I don't know if that was entirely her intention, but apparently she showed her phone with the date and blurred the date out. So that shows a level of deceit, really, that she didn't want people to know when it was. So I choose to be a bit more cautious and not really blame entirely, but it was disingenuous, the fact that she was posting things as they were current when they weren't, and she wasn't letting people know, even though they were worried about her and they were calling child services on her and everything and phoning in welfare checks and things like that. But it wasn't even, well, it was true, but it wasn't even current, and it had been several months since her husband had passed away. Now, why was she doing this though? One thing that she did do, because she kept on posting vlogs, and she even posted vlogs with her husband in as if they were current, even though he'd already passed away. And that just shows some sort of level of, is insane. I mean, most people wouldn't post a vlog with their husband in after he died, right? I don't think they would, because it doesn't, you're still grieving for one thing, and also it's kind of disrespectful. And but people didn't know that he died in those vlogs either, and they were posting as if, talking about it, all happy and everything. Yeah, it was really, really weird.
The message appointment after, I don't know what you meant.
Anyway, so yeah, it just Murphy's Law. When we have to wait outside for half an hour, yeah. It's in all of this smoke.
A little chaos, because I got the mixed message. I thought you meant after the appointment. No.
So that vlog was posted on September 15th, and that was, a couple of months after he'd passed away. And it just feels very disingenuous at this point that she's posting as current when it's not. but she's now currently back to posting in real time and trying to keep things on the straight and narrow, knowing that people were confused. But what she hasn't done is, right now in the descriptions, she's put in that the date that her husband has passed away, but she's not mentioning it in the older vlogs, which people are still commenting about it because they don't know the situation, and she's not letting people know in those vlogs either. Now currently she's telling us all about child services who have been called about the situation.
It's 4 a.m. in the morning and the police came to my door. Somebody that watched my video called them, and the police went and they looked at my videos on YouTube and they came to check on me. I was so relieved when they told me that I didn't have anything to worry about, that I wasn't in trouble, because that was what I first thought when they came. Is I thought, oh no, the results came back and there's something not right. The results from the autopsy, that is, and I was afraid that they were here because I was in trouble. So they said I wasn't in trouble, thank God, and that somebody had called them that had seen my video the 39 hours after, and they just came to check to see if I was okay, and it was very comforting. They were understanding, and they said that anybody would have those kinds of thoughts after something like that happened, and they were comforting.
So she had a visit because people were reporting that she was not mentally well and needed a welfare check, essentially, right? But also about the kids, because maybe they are not, coping. Also the fact that she still hasn't, I don't think, told the kids about their dad dying. I assume they've been told now. I mean, it's months later, isn't it? So, see, even I'm getting confused with the timeline. So hopefully she has told them by now. But then she went on to say the next video that she had received more visits.
I also want to let you guys know that I've also had 2 more people visiting me. One was the Family and Children's Services, again for the second time. They had already closed their investigation from being called when my husband passed suddenly. That was routine, I understand. That's because the children were so young. And the police were called again on me. I'm laughing because I'm not in trouble. But apparently, the fax worker showed up at my door, and I had just gotten a letter 2 days prior saying that the investigation was closed. So,
and I think the problem here is that she had been posting these videos as they were current, not telling people that they were months old and that they were pre-recorded, and people were taking that as face value, and reporting it, concerned for her, and yet there was no need, or not as much need, to report on that. But that's why people were so keen to get the police and children's services involved.
Now on to the very next day, last Friday, I got a visit from the fax worker. Again, this time another worker, and somebody from Switzerland, believe it or not, had contacted them. He said he didn't know that they even existed. He couldn't remember the exact name, but it was cyber security, something like that. And they contacted Family and Children's Services in the US. It's called CPS, Child Protection. And so that's why they came, and So yeah, believe it or not, I guess there's some kind of organization policing the internet. And so he wanted to speak to all the children, which he did. He asked everybody questions. He wanted to do a check of the whole house. And I showed him the whole house and a thorough check of the whole house. He even wanted to see like what was behind the closet doors. So I showed him, I said it's just a closet and this is a bathroom. I showed it to him. So, you know, he saw the basement. There's no dungeon or anything.
So she went on to address the people who were saying that she was conning and that this was all made up and things like that. And she went to prove that she had these letters and stuff like that. I'm not going to show it, but that's what she... So basically having a swipe back at people who were accusing her of doing all this. And yet the only reason they're doing it is because she's putting it out there that, you know, all this is happening and people are going to have opinions and they're going to have negative opinions. I personally have given many negative opinions during the course of this video, and that's because of what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, and that's what she's putting out there herself.
And so the very same day at 10:30 in the evening, the detective shows up at my door. Again, somebody had called and complained that they weren't investigating properly because I said on the video that I had this evidence and that I didn't tell them about the evidence. And I gotta tell you right now, if I was guilty of doing anything, then I would not talk about it on social media.
See, I don't entirely agree with that because I think that, yeah, if you maliciously done something to your husband, maybe you probably wouldn't have talked about it on social media. But on the other hand, you have talked about many things which have incriminated you during the course of your videos, and you've done that without knowing that you've done it. So yeah, you would talk about things if you are guilty of something.
So she talked to me for about half an hour outside, and she said, "Why didn't you ask me about it?" And I said, "Well, I didn't think that you could talk about it. Like, honestly, I don't think detectives are allowed to talk about cases. I don't think you're supposed to or can ask them, you know, what they're thinking."
Not to labour the point here, but I think that she has some issues. She has a lack of life experience because she's been stuck at home with her unwell husband, looking after him for so long and looking after all the kids and just being home. I mean, even the kids are homeschooled. It's just an insane situation where she has no experience of anything. So she doesn't think that she can ask the police certain questions because she didn't think she could ask those questions. Why not? Just ask the questions. If you have concerns, ask the questions, and there's no reason why the police wouldn't answer you. But she doesn't seem to know this because of the lack of life experience. That's my opinion anyway.
I think that was pretty much it, except that now I have to go in tomorrow. Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow, Wednesday in the afternoon, I have to go at 3 to the police station, and she has to ask me some questions about the video that I took. The video and the pictures that I took of my husband before he passed away. So she said I'm not in trouble. So if I wanted, I could bring a lawyer, but she says you won't need to because you're not in trouble.
So on that particular vlog, there was many people advising get a lawyer. Get a lawyer, because even if you're not in trouble, you could incriminate yourself. Get a lawyer. And unfortunately, these vlogs are not entirely in real time. They're a few days behind, I think, so she missed the advice and she'd already been to the appointment, and yeah, she didn't get a lawyer.
Hello, this is Rosalie, mom of 8 kids. Yesterday, I had to go into the police station because they wanted to ask me some questions. Somebody had called the police, and that was last week, and said that they weren't investigating properly because I had mentioned on one of my previous videos that I had taken some video of my husband before he passed, shortly before he passed, suddenly, and that they wanted to ask me some questions about it. And I know that usually you would take a lawyer with you if the police want you to come in for questioning, but the detective investigating the case, she said that I wasn't a suspect, and I believe her when she says that I am not a suspect. So, Empress, can you please be quiet? Okay, thank you. So she said I wasn't a suspect, and I believe her when she says that I'm not a suspect. So I agreed to it, and I wasn't worried about it.
So she didn't bring a lawyer, and she just talked. And from listening to her throughout the course of this whole saga, I would say that's probably the worst thing that she could have done, because in my opinion, she is guilty of like neglect at the very least, right? And the level of culpability or the level of responsibility, I don't know, because I get the impression that she has led a sheltered life, and her family was very much, you know, sheltered from everything and everybody. And for that reason, I think child services do need to get involved in some form, right? Because this woman has listened to her 18-year-old on one of the most absurd pieces of advice I think I've ever heard. Not to tell your children that their father has passed away, because they would eventually get over it, essentially, right? No adult would do that. No adult would take that as advice. Seriously, no, nobody. And she did. But if she needs her adult children to give her life advice, there's something that needs to be, you know, people need to step in. She has a 1 and 4-year-old, and they need her to step up. They need somebody to step up for her. So she's getting a lot of hate in the comments at the moment, because firstly she led them on, you know, and everything, but also because despite her grieving, obviously she's still grieving, it's only a few months gone, isn't it? But her kids are more important. A, they've lost their dad, so they'll be grieving, but B, they are suffering at the hands of not having anybody around them that can look after them effectively. The whole setup is absolutely mad, right? Just from watching the videos alone, you can tell that it's very, very chaotic. And the things she said is just, somebody needs to step in and look after the children, or give her help looking after the children. So that's what I had to say about it. I know this has been a very, very long video, and maybe you've reached the end, maybe you haven't. I hope you have, but people have lives. I understand that, you know, don't have an hour or so to sit around listening to me talk about somebody online, you know. It's people have lives, I get it. But if you have reached the end, I hope you've taken something from this video. Different opinions, maybe my viewpoint. If you already knew of this situation, maybe you've enjoyed listening to what I've had to say about it, and hopefully that's the end of it, really. I hope the kids get the help that they need. I hope she gets the help that she needs. She really does need to take herself off social media for a while and stop listening to people online, And yeah, I wish them the best, and that's that. Until next time, please give this video a massive thumbs up if you've appreciated it, and comment all your thoughts about this down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and bye bye.